The candles flickered, 7 tiny flames dancing above a pink frosted cake shaped like a butterfly. Okay, Em, her mom said with a soft smile. Make a wish. Emily stood in her frilly dress, hands clasped tight in front of her. Her eyes weren't on the cake. They were on the empty chair, the one at the far end of the table. Always set, always waiting. A blue party hat sitting on the cushion like a promise not yet kept. Do you think he's coming this time? She whispered. Her mother hesitated, just for a breath, then crouched beside her. He might, sweetheart. Emily stared at the chair a moment longer, then nodded, blinked twice, blew out the candles in one strong breath. The kids clapped. The room moved on, but Emily kept looking at the chair. Year after year, the rituals repeated. Balloons, streamers, a new number on the wall. But that chair stayed the same. At 9, she placed a crayon drawing on the seat, her holding hands with a man in a suit. At 10, she taped a hand-folded letter beneath the cushion, scrawled in blocky pencil, Dear Dad, please come next year. I miss you. At 12, she didn't ask if he was coming. She just looked out the window once, then never again that night. By 13, she stopped inviting classmates altogether. By 15, she didn't want cake, but the chair remained, always there, always full of silence. On the night of her 16th birthday, Emily stood in the kitchen, watching her mother scrape icing off a knife. Why do you still set that chair? She asked. Her mother paused, slowly looked up. I guess. I keep hoping you won't. Emily let the words settle in the quiet hum of the refrigerator. I don't wait for him anymore, she said. I just wonder what kind of man can miss 16 birthdays and still call himself a father. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't need to. It hit harder because it didn't. In the living room, across the years, framed photos showed her growing up. 1 year younger in every photo. Her smile a little dimmer in each frame. Until, eventually, the chair disappeared from the birthday pictures. Not because it wasn't there, but because Emily no longer looked at it. She looked forward instead. On her 17th, she baked her own cake. No hats, no decorations, just her mom, and a candle jammed into a grocery store cupcake. She lit the wick and stared at the flame like it owed her something. Her mother placed a gentle hand on hers. You don't have to forgive him. I don't hate him, Emily replied. Then what do you feel? Emily exhaled slowly. I feel done. But as the candle burned low, a thought flickered with it. What if he did show up? Would she slam the door? Would she cry? Would she finally say all the things she'd rehearsed in the dark? Or would she just stare at him like she had stared at that chair, waiting for it to mean something? Outside, the wind nudged the empty porch swing. The sky dimmed into deep blue, and in the window, the chair sat quiet. Not empty, but full of everything unsaid. The living room was quiet except for the soft scratch of a crayon. Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, tongue between her teeth in focus, coloring inside a lopsided heart. The card folded in half, the paper thin, but she handled it like it was glass. On the front, Happy Birthday, Daddy. Inside, a drawing of her mom, and a stick figure man, taller than the others, with a yellow crown on his head. She wrote under it, You are my king. She kissed the corner of the page when she finished, then gently slid it into the shoebox beneath her bed, beside 7 other cards. One for each birthday he'd missed. Every year, she made another. Some had glitter, glued with shaky fingers. Others were just notebook paper and pencil, but each one carried the same message. I miss you. Come next year, please. At age 8, she asked her mom, again, as they washed dishes together, why doesn't Daddy come to my parties? Sarah's hands froze in the soapy water. Her eyes flicked toward the window, as if she might find the answer floating outside. She forced a soft smile. He's just busy, honey. But he loves you. Emily blinked. He loves me, she repeated, testing the sentence on her lips like a flavor. Of course, her mom said too quickly. Then, why doesn't he want to see me blow out my candles? The sponge dropped into the sink with a splash. Sarah turned away. Her shoulders trembled once, then stilled. Emily didn't ask again that night, but she kept believing. She believed through tin candles, through school plays, and missed parent nights and phone calls that never came. She believed because that's what children do when the world doesn't give them a reason not to. One year, she wore her prettiest dress, red with white polka dots, the one her mom said made her look like a ladybug. She waited by the front door, holding the card she'd made, this one with glitter stars and a golden ribbon. She waited until the sky went dark and her head leaned against the glass. "He'll come next year," she whispered. Her mom stood behind her, quiet. The porch light buzzed softly. No car pulled into the driveway. No footsteps. No knock. That night, her mother tucked her into bed, and before she turned out the light, Emily asked softly, "Was I not good enough this year?" Sarah froze in the doorway, and something behind her eyes broke. She walked back, sat on the bed. "No, baby. No," she said, brushing the hair from Emily's forehead. You're too good." Emily didn't respond. She just rolled to her side, one hand still gripping the corner of the glittery card. In the dark, the shoebox remained under the bed, a quiet time capsule of unanswered love. Its weight grew heavier, year by year, not in paper, but in silence and hope. Hope that dimmed, but never died. Maybe next year. It was raining, not the kind that thundered or poured, just a slow, steady drizzle, like the sky had grown tired of pretending. Emily sat by the window, knees tucked under her, chin resting on her folded arms. On the table beside her sat a small box, wrapped in sky blue paper and tied with twine. A hand-folded card leaned against it. She had drawn a guitar on the front he used to play when she was little. Or maybe she just thought he did. Inside the box, wrapped in soft cloth, was a leather keychain. She'd burned the initials in herself during art class, DC. It wasn't perfect, but it was from her, and that still had to mean something. He had said he was coming this year. "Promise, kiddo. Saturday, 4 p.m. I'll be there." She believed it, not out of hope anymore, just out of habit. She checked the clock again. For 17 p.m. Her stomach twisted, but her face remained still. Across the room, Sarah moved silently in the kitchen, watching her daughter through a veil of ache she could no longer hide. She didn't ask. She didn't want to be the one to say it. At 4:32, the phone buzzed. Emily didn't rush. She stood slowly, walked over, and stared at the caller ID. "Dad." She picked it up and answered without a word. There was static, a shuffle of air, then his voice, too bright, too forced. "Hey, Pumpkin. Look, things ran late at work, and then my car started acting up and..." "It's okay," she said. He paused. "You sure?" God, I wanted to." "It's fine," she said, quieter now. No, it's not fine. I'll make it up to you, I swear. Maybe next week? Or, I have homework," she said, cutting him off gently. "Can I call you later?" A pause on the line. Then, yeah, of course. "Okay, bye." She hung up. No tears. Not this time. She walked back to the window and sat down. The gift still sat unopened, untouched. She didn't reach for it, didn't move it, just stared out into the rain. Her reflection blurred on the glass, The blue box a silent companion to a moment that no longer hurt the way it used to. It didn't sting. It just settled, like dust in a room no one had cleaned in years. Behind her, her mother watched her closely, ready to step in, ready to soothe. But Emily just exhaled, long, slow, hollow. He doesn't even ask what I like anymore, she whispered. Sarah walked over and sat beside her, wrapping an arm gently around her daughter's shoulders. He doesn't know who I am, Emily added. There was no sobbing, just a kind of stillness that comes when something fragile breaks for the last time. Sarah kissed her hair and didn't try to fix it with words. Some silences aren't meant to be filled, and some promises, once broken enough times, lose their shape altogether. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, the blue box remained unopened. And Emily, age 13, heart quiet, eyes older, crossed one more year off the list. By the time she was 15, Emily stopped waiting, stopped checking the mailbox, stopped glancing at her phone whenever it buzzed, just in case. And most importantly, she stopped asking. The shift was subtle. No announcement, no dramatic fallout. Just the slow, silent closing of a door that had stayed cracked open for too long. The empty chair still appeared at birthdays, but now it wasn't saved for anyone. It was just a chair. She didn't talk about him anymore. Not to friends, not to her mom, not even in the quiet corners of her mind. The old drawing pad that once held carefully colored birthday cards, all signed love, Emily in uneven cursive, now sat in the bottom of her closet, untouched. Until one cold Saturday in November. She pulled it out, flipped through the pages. Year after year, a zoo-themed card from age 6, a superhero one at 8, a simple "I miss you" with a blue heart, done in Sharpie from when she turned 10. And then she tore them, one by one. The pages ripped louder than she expected, each tear echoing like a scream in a house that hadn't heard one in years. She didn't cry. Her hands moved methodically, controlled, like she was pulling weeds. When she was done, she placed the shreds in the kitchen trash, pressed them down with both palms, took a long breath. It was done. From then on, Emily poured herself into everything she could control. Academics, study groups, volunteer hours, late-night debate prep. She became a name teachers knew, a student who didn't speak much, but when she did, it meant something. She was on the honor roll every semester, captain of the quiz team, applied to 6 colleges, accepted to all of them. She smiled for photos, shook hands with principals, and stayed 15 steps ahead of disappointment. She didn't need a father to show up anymore. She had learned to show up for herself. Sarah, her mother, watched all of this unfold with pride and quiet worry. She never pried, but sometimes she'd catch her daughter staring at an old family picture with that same far-off look, the one children wear when they outgrow their innocence too fast. At night, Emily lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, letting the silence of her room fill the space where questions used to live. Why didn't he come? Did he love me? Was I ever enough to make him stay? But now? Now, there were no questions left. Just the hollow piece of acceptance. She had learned the hardest truth of all. Sometimes, the people you wait for simply choose not to arrive. And that choice has nothing to do with you. The email came just after midnight. Subject: congratulations, valedictorian. Emily stared at the screen in silence. The glow from her laptop cast soft shadows across her room. The same room she'd grown up in, fought through, outgrown. Her name at the top of the graduating class. She should have felt something. Joy, triumph, relief. Instead, she felt hollow. That night, she lay awake under a ceiling that had heard every late-night tear, every silent prayer, every whispered, maybe next year. The next morning, the school buzzed with plans. Dresses, shoes, dinner reservations. Friends squealed about their speeches and seating charts. "My dad's flying in from Seattle," said Marissa, flipping her hair with a proud grin. "Mine's got this goofy tie he says he has to wear," laughed another. Emily smiled politely, nodded, said nothing. She didn't need to. Everyone knew. Her dad wouldn't be there. He never was. That afternoon, her mom stood in the doorway of Emily's room, holding a mug of tea, watching her daughter carefully fold a copy of her speech. "You sure you don't want to invite him?" Sarah asked gently. Emily didn't even look up. "No." Her voice was calm, cold, measured. Sarah hesitated. He might come, you know, if he knew." Emily looked up now, slowly. "Mom, he knows every birthday I ever had, and he still didn't show up. I'm not giving him this too." The words didn't sting. Not anymore. They just sat heavy in the air. Sarah nodded, quietly placed the mug down. "You're right." There was no anger in her voice, just sadness, the kind that lingers after you've stopped hoping. In the days that followed, Emily practiced her speech alone in the mirror. Every sentence she wrote had weight. Every pause, a memory. Every word, a choice. She wrote about growth, about how some people water you and some leave you to grow through concrete, about how silence can either break you or shape you. Nowhere in the speech did she say his name, but he was everywhere in it. The missing applause, the silent seat, the wound that taught her how to walk on her own. At rehearsal, she stood at the podium for the first time. The microphone squeaked. The auditorium echoed. She didn't shake. She didn't stutter. She just breathed in, slow and steady, and imagined her voice rising above every birthday he missed. The candles flickered, 5 tiny flames. Emily sat at the head of the kitchen table, her feet dangling above the floor, a pink party hat slightly crooked on her head. Frosting was smudged across her cheek, and her eyes sparkled, the way only a 5-year-old's could. Pure, expectant. Balloons bobbed against the ceiling. Streamers twisted along the walls. But the real gift stood just outside the frame. David knelt beside her. He looked younger then, tired but trying. A frayed dress shirt, the sleeves rolled to the elbows, a 3-day beard that smelled like coffee and gasoline. His hands, calloused and worn, cradled something behind his back. "Close your eyes, birthday girl." Emily squealed, squeezing her eyes shut. Her chubby fists balled in her lap. He gently placed it in her hands. "Okay, open." A tiny gasp. A music box. Round, silver, and etched with tiny butterflies that danced in the light. Emily turned the crank carefully. The lid lifted. A melody spilled out, soft and slow. Tinkling notes that danced on the birthday air. Claire de Lune. She looked up at him. "I love it, Daddy." He smiled, that kind of smile that's half guilt, half hope. "Whenever you miss me, you play that, okay?" She tilted her head. "But why would I miss you?" He paused. The moment shrank. Then he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Because sometimes grown-ups have to work a lot. But I'll always try. I'll be there for every birthday. I promise." Emily's face lit up. "You promise?" "I do." His voice was soft, sincere. Outside, somewhere in the street, a car door slammed. A dog barked. Inside, the music played on, filling the kitchen, the air, her little chest. She held the box close, nodding as though sealing the moment in her bones. She believed him, every word. The promise settled into her like a lullaby. But then, the sound began to fade. The music box, still spinning, slowed. One note dragged longer than it should have. Another wobbled, out of tune, and slowly, softly. It stopped. Cut to. Years later, same box, now scuffed. The butterflies dulled with time. Teenage Emily opens it. Silence. She tries to wind it. The crank resists. She stares at it, expression blank. No more song. Only the memory of a promise never kept. The gym pulsed with applause. Hundreds of folding chairs filled the floor, a sea of caps and gowns shifting nervously under bright fluorescent lights. Parents leaned over rails with smartphones. Teachers lined the stage in pressed suits and proud smiles. Banners fluttered above the podium. Class of 2024, the future begins here. Emily stood in the wings, hands curled tightly around her printed speech. The paper trembled slightly, not from fear, but from everything that had led her here. Every silent birthday, every hollow maybe next time, every smile she'd forced when others talked about their fathers. Now, it was her turn to speak. Valedictorian Emily Grace Carter, the principal announced. Applause swelled again, polite, expectant. She walked slowly toward the podium. Every step echoed against polished wood floors, bouncing off gym walls covered in championship banners and dusty trophies. And then she saw it. The seat. Front row. Far right. Reserved section. A single folding chair with a white card taped to the back. David Carter. Empty. Of course it was empty. Her breath caught, just for a moment. Not in surprise, but in recognition. She had imagined this moment so many times. Wondered if he'd slip in late, lean against the back wall, nod once when their eyes met. But the chair was just a chair. She reached the podium. The mic crackled. A hush spread. She looked out over the crowd, rows of beaming faces. Families clapping, hugging, dabbing eyes with tissue. Her mother sat near the center, hands clasped, tears already in her eyes. Emily smiled softly, then looked back to the empty chair, took a breath, and began. Not every story has a perfect beginning. Her voice wavered, just once. A few students blinked. One teacher leaned forward. Some stories start with absence, with waiting, with a little girl staring at a door that never opens. She paused. The gym held its breath. And yet, we grow anyway. We find light, even when the sky stays cloudy. And sometimes, the people who didn't show up teach us what showing up truly means. Her voice was stronger now. I used to think missing someone meant holding a place for them. But I've learned sometimes it means letting go. Another pause. This one was hers. Controlled. Earned. To those who were here, thank you. To those who weren't, thank you too. Because your silence became the reason I found my voice. From the back, a murmur of approval. Somewhere, a teacher wiped their eyes. Emily looked up. The room was still. Even the air felt reverent. She smiled. Here's to the next chapter. And to never waiting for someone to love you the way you should have loved yourself all along. Applause thundered, but her gaze didn't scan the crowd this time. It returned once more to the empty seat. And without a single word, Emily nodded to it. Not in bitterness, not in sadness, but in goodbye. The applause was still echoing. Emily turned slightly, letting the sound wash over her like a tide she couldn't quite touch. Her heart thudded behind her ribs, not from nerves, but from the ache of everything that had built to this day. The silent birthdays, the phone calls that never came, the empty promises wrapped in excuses. She stepped down from the podium, and then a sound, a rustle in the back of the auditorium, the soft shuffle of a man's footsteps against the linoleum floor. Emily froze. So did time. A few heads turned. Whispers stirred like wine through tall grass. Is that? He moved slowly, uncertainly. as if every step cracked beneath the weight of something long overdue. David Carter, a suit too old, shoulders slouched, eyes rimmed in red. His hair had more gray than she remembered, or maybe she was just seeing clearly for the first time. He didn't look at the crowd, didn't offer a wave. He just clutched a small, square box wrapped in simple brown paper, tied with twine. No bell, no glitter, just quiet weight. Emily's breath caught. Her fingers twitched at her sides. What was he doing here? He stepped past rows of proud parents and teary-eyed friends, never meeting their gazes. His eyes were fixed on one thing, the chair. Her chair, the one where she had left her speech. The one she'd returned to with trembling legs and a full heart. David reached it. For a moment, he just stood there, like he wasn't sure he had the right to touch anything. Then, gently, almost reverently, he placed the box on the seat. It sat there, quiet, unmoving. A single breath of silence filled the gym. And then, slowly, he looked up at her. Their eyes met. Years collapsed between them. Birthdays missed. Drawings never opened. 100 silent questions. All of them sat in his eyes now, glistening with apology, regret, and something deeper. Hope. He didn't speak. Not a single word. Just a nod. Small. Barely there. But real. Raw. She didn't nod back. Didn't cry. Didn't run to him like a movie ending would demand. She just looked straight through him. And yet something inside her shifted, like a lock turning for the first time. He stepped back. One slow step. Then another. He turned and walked toward the exit. No fanfare. No dramatic last glance. He disappeared as quietly as he'd arrived. Emily stared at the box on her seat. The paper looked soft, weathered. It had been folded and refolded, handled with care. Her hand hovered over it. She didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, she sat beside it, still in her gown, surrounded by cheers and flashing cameras, and let herself feel everything. Not joy, not closure, but something close to understanding. She wasn't sure if she'd ever forgive him, but for the first time in her life, he had shown up, not for himself, not to fix the past, just to leave something behind. Emily stared down at the brown paper box beside her. Her fingertips grazed the twine. It felt rough, real, like something tied by a hand that had fumbled for years and finally held on. But she didn't open it. Not yet. The auditorium hadn't fully exhaled since the moment he walked out. The crowd buzzed in the aftermath, whispers rising like the low hum of static. But Emily stood again, slowly, and walked back to the podium. The principal moved to stop her, startled. She raised her hand gently, then leaned into the mic. The crowd silenced. Her eyes didn't search for her father. She didn't need to. "I wasn't going to say anything more," she said softly, "but there's something I need to finish." A pause. The lights warmed her face, but she didn't blink. "When I was younger, I thought love meant always being there, showing up, no matter what. Birthdays, school plays, hard days, good ones." A few parents nodded, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. And when someone didn't show up, it felt like that meant they didn't love you, that you weren't worth it. Her voice caught, but she pushed through. "But as I've grown, I've learned that love isn't always simple. People mess up. They get lost. They miss too much. And sometimes they come back." A whisper ran through the crowd. Even the teachers leaned in. And when they do, when they come back not to be celebrated, but just to say sorry, that takes something. Another pause. Not for drama, for honesty. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this. Not every story has a clean ending, or a hero, or a perfect father. Her eyes welled, but no tears fell. But some stories, still find their way to forgiveness. Silence. Then one clap, then another, and another. Then the room rose. The gym thundered with applause. Standing ovation. Her mother was crying, her hand over her heart. Students cheered. Friends yelled her name. And somewhere, far in the back, behind the rows of chairs, beyond the lights, a man stood in shadow. Not clapping, not smiling, just still. Emily didn't need to see him. She felt him, and somehow that was enough. She stepped back from the podium, let the applause hold her, and walked back to her seat. Only then did she pick up the box. Hands trembling now, she untied the twine, folded back the paper. Inside, a photograph, slightly yellowed. A girl, maybe 7, with missing teeth and a glitter crown, sitting on her dad's lap. A homemade cake between them, and on the back, in shaky handwriting, "Happy 7th birthday. I'm sorry I missed it. I never stopped loving you. Dad." Her hand flew to her mouth. She looked up again. The crowd was still standing, but all she saw was the little girl she used to be finally heard, finally seen. The graduation gown still hung over her desk chair. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, the box resting in her lap, lighter than it looked, heavier than anything she'd ever held. The room was dim. The evening sun painted gold lines across the walls. Her tassel, her diploma, her speech, they all lay forgotten beside her. All that mattered now was what had been left behind. She breathed in, then opened it. The paper unfolded with a soft crinkle, and inside, color, bright, crayon strokes, glitter, dried glue that had long since flaked to dust. Cards, birthday cards, her birthday cards, the ones she thought were lost, forgotten, trashed. There they were, every single one. From age 6 to 13, she gasped. Her fingers hovered over them, too afraid to touch. Each one was a memory stitched in construction paper and hope. She picked one up, a drawing of a stick figure in a suit, holding her hand beside a giant pink cake. Inside, the words, "I hope you come next year. I saved you the biggest piece." Her handwriting, her hope. He had kept them all. She reached deeper, and there it was, the music box. Small, wooden, carved with tiny flowers along the lid. She hadn't seen it in years, not since the day she stopped waiting. Her fingers brushed the rusted key. Slowly, gently, she turned it. Click, click, click. Then soft music. A lullaby. Her lullaby. The one he used to play every night before bed. Back when he was still Dad, not David. Back before absence was louder than any song. The melody cracked with age, but it played. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she let herself go back to the porch swings, to the birthday cake he made when she was 5 lopsided, but hers, to the way he used to hum this very song while brushing her hair after baths, and then to every year he didn't come, the photos that didn't have him, the recitals he missed, the tears she buried. Her lips trembled, but no tears came, just breath, long, deep, forgiving. She looked down at the cards, not with the ache of what wasn't, but with the strange, delicate peace of knowing he had never stopped remembering. He just hadn't known how to come back. Until now. The music box slowed, winding down. One last note rang out, then silence. She placed the cards gently back in the box, closed the lid, not to forget, to preserve, to choose what stayed. From the hallway, her mother's voice called softly, "Dinner's ready, honey." Emily looked once more at the box in her lap, then stood and whispered to herself. He missed every birthday, but he came when it mattered. She left the room. The box stayed behind, still, waiting. but no longer empty. The wind moved gently through the open window, stirring the curtains like quiet applause. Emily stood in the frame, arms crossed over her chest, not in defense, but in stillness, in peace. The world outside buzzed with early summer. Kids on bikes, the distant bark of a dog, the faint hum of lawnmowers. Ordinary things, beautiful things, life unfolding. Behind her on the desk, her graduation cap rested beside a small brown box. That box, the one with the music, the one with the memory, the one that made space for something she never thought she'd feel again. Closure. She touched the glass lightly with her fingertips. The warmth of the day seeped through. Down the block, a little girl ran toward her father on the sidewalk. He swept her up effortlessly, spun her in the air. She laughed like the sound was brand new. Emily smiled, not wistfully, not bitterly, just softly. Because she wasn't that girl anymore, the one who waited at windows with crayon cards and swollen hope. She was the girl who stood in her own light now, the girl who made her own future. But still, he came back. And on the day it mattered most, he didn't bring excuses. He brought her past, in a box, and gave her the choice to forgive it. Her mother stepped into the room behind her. "You okay?" Emily turned, eyes calm. "Yeah," she said. Her voice didn't shake, not like it used to when the word Dad was mentioned. She looked back out the window, watching the trees sway. In her mind, she heard the music box again, its creaky lullaby, broken and beautiful, like the man who gave it, like the story it came from. And then the voiceover began, not from her lips, but from somewhere deeper. A memory, a message, a truth that only now made sense. He missed every birthday, every candle, every wish. A shot, her 6th birthday photo, the empty chair. Another, her at 13, by the window, gift in hand. And then the graduation stage, the box, the hug, the final words. But on the day she became who she was meant to be, he showed up, and that was enough. The music swelled, and in the final frame, Emily stood by the window again. But this time, she wasn't waiting. She was smiling, not because of who was out there, but because of who she'd become. Fade to black,